I thought I'd be making this video tomorrow because I thought I'd get access to the Classic Collection tomorrow like everybody else, but thanks to Aspyr and EA, they've sent over a code early for me to play Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection on PS5, and this game has just brought me straight back to my childhood. For the most part, this is a straight port of the first two Battlefront games from back in the 2000s that I grew up with over to the PS5 with enhanced textures, better anti-aliasing, better shadows, better bump maps, online multiplayer, completely revived, and we'll talk about that and the implications of it in a bit. But overall, I'm just so incredibly happy that this is back. So let's jump straight into why Star Wars Battlefront the Classic Collection is not only a triumph in bringing back old games like this on its own, but also a good sign for the future of Star Wars games amidst a time where it seems like a lot of them unfortunately getting cancelled. The Classic Collection brings all the same visuals that you know from the Star Wars universe, the same sounds, the same music, the same settings, the same player models, exactly the same experience as you remembered it on PS2, PS3, Xbox, whatever you played it on, it's the same as there, except better. Because it's on PS5, the game runs incredibly smooth. The load times are basically non-existent. You've just seen a load time into a game just then. That's how quick it is. There's no cut in the middle of there. And the game looks pretty damn great. It's upscaled to 4K, I believe, in terms of textures. The anti-aliasing is doing tremendous work here in terms of making sure no lines are jagged. The shadows are incredibly clean and vivid. Some textures have had full reworks in terms of how they look, and some surfaces do now have reflections on them, as well as new bump maps for vehicles like the Snail Tank, which I noticed on Kashyyyk. And some of the flyable ships in the space combat have fairly noticeable visual increases due to bump maps and reflections on them, as they're actually affected by dynamic explosions and light sources around them, which is awesome to see. Little details like this really enhance the experience and make this game seem as how you remembered it back in the day, not like how it actually was, because I've jumped into Battlefront on Steam not that long ago, and the experience here is so much more polished and easy to jump into and more refined, which is just awesome. It uses some PS5 features as well, like the haptics and triggers. The haptics themselves, pretty good. They feel solid. You feel every shot that you take, you feel every explosion and every blaster bolt hitting you. It's pretty solid, although the triggers aren't quite what I expected them to be. I expected them to kick back a little bit, like say Helldivers 2 or Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge on PSVR2 does. It has that capability with this controller, but unfortunately they seem to just max out the trigger so that you can't really press it in very far, which was a little bit of a disappointment. They didn't really utilize the triggers to the full effect, but honestly it's such a little nitpick of mine, it's not really worth covering too much in depth, but the haptics themselves are pretty damn good here. As I said before, all the content has been brought over, all the campaigns are here. Galactic Conquest, both on Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, is here to play and here to stay, which is just incredible. I love these modes from back in the day, and it's awesome that they've been ported over. It's not just, say, the multiplayer aspect or instant action, which is also here. That's right, the online multiplayer has been brought into this game, meaning that EA have actually paid for dedicated servers for, I'm assuming, each of the different consoles, because I don't believe there's crossplay, but I might have to check that. Either way, they've invested a fair bit of money in both this port and the servers themselves, so I think they're assuming there'll be quite a big return in terms of the player base investing into the title, which I believe there will be. So that's quite a positive thing for the future of the Star Wars franchise on console and on PC, and just in games in general, because if they're willing to invest money into this, believing it'll do well, there's no reason to say why they won't think other projects will do well in the online multiplayer space in the future. That being said, the online multiplayer can be accessed through either Quick Match, which will load you into whatever match is available, or through hosting yourself, where you can adjust your parameters, your maps and everything that you want, or through the server browser, where you can select what server you want to join manually. All these options are very, very welcome. I think online multiplayer games, especially FPS games, are at their best when they've got all these options for matchmaking, making it so the player can jump in however they like. It's one of the reasons why I like Battlefield 5 so much, is that I can jump into Quick Match if I'm feeling any map, or I can look for one in the server browser if I'm feeling a particular map. It's exactly the same here, and I appreciate that very much. The DLC that used to only be on Xbox exclusively is also here. Asajj Ventress, Kit Fisto, they're both in the game along with a couple new maps, and a lot more maps are available for the Heroes Only mode, which is awesome to see. It's essentially the equivalent of Hero Showdown if you played Battlefront 2017, and it's incredibly chaotic here on the Battlefront Collection, just like it was back in 2005, although we just had access to Tatooine back then, whereas it's a whole host of new maps here. My main point here is there is so much content, and it's been so much fun to jump in and see it play as well as it does on PS5, and I'm assuming it does on PC as well, and on Xbox Series X. I have no idea about Switch. I'm hoping it runs well there, but I haven't seen any gameplay. But on PS5, my experience with this has been pretty damn great. That being said though, the controls and the control schemes are still the same. The controls feel a bit more refined naturally because we're using a controller that has far less of a dead zone than the old controllers, say on the PS2 or the original Xbox. So naturally aiming feels quite a bit better, although the acceleration curves I don't think can be adjusted from what I've seen. I've had a look through the menus, I can't find any option for that. So you've still got the old feeling acceleration curves for turning, which can make it feel a little bit clunky if you're used to playing other games. Say if you hop on from Battlefield, Insurgency or COD, straight into this, it'll feel a little clunky at first, but you'll get used to it just as I did, and it feels a lot better than playing it on the older consoles or on the older ports like the Steam port. One other note as well is that the game is upscaled, meaning that these textures are 4K, I covered that before, means they look great, but also means that the file size is a lot bigger here. It's around 30 gig here on PlayStation, I believe it's a bit bigger on PS4, but on PS5 it's 30. And I'm assuming this is because everything has been upscaled, including the video files here. If they're 4K, that will be a very big contributor to why the game size is as big as it is, because these games are, I think, 5 gig and around 3 gig respectively, or something like that in their original forms. But to be honest, 30 gig nowadays isn't too big, but I just thought I'd put that out there. Its price is also very cheap. Around £30 here in the UK gets you both games with all their content included, and there is so much content. To be honest, it's almost just worth the price tag alone to dive into the Carrier Assault mode. If you've ever played the original Battlefront games before, they have incredible modes where you can take off from your ship, either assault another ship with your fighters, or land in the other ship's hangar bay and assault it from the inside, which is so incredibly cool to do as a player and not just through a cutscene like it is nowadays with Battlefront 2017. If you haven't played the original Battlefront before and you think the gameplay looks fun, definitely give it a go, it's great for the price. And if you're like me and used to play these all the time, this is exactly how you remember them, but better. All the magic of nostalgia is there, but it's actually a good experience. It's not just rose-tinted glasses this time, although they have changed the pitch of the loading screen for Battlefront 1, which I'm just incredibly confused by. Why would you do that? I don't understand, but the rest of it is perfectly intact how it was. Even the menus for Battlefront 1, they're upscaled, but they look the same, and they look so good. And if it's done one thing as well, it's made me want to jump back into Contractors to play Battlefront VR, because that is just such a good experience. Anyway, those are my impressions of Battlefront Classic Collection. Thank you to EA and Aspyr for giving me a code to have a look at this a little bit early and get my thoughts out. If you want to check out my VR Battlefront video, that link will be in the description below. It's a very fun video and a very fun game. Thank you to our patrons, Luke Bentley, Hazit Mirza, and Ace Gamer. If you want to join the Patreon or the YouTube membership, the link is in the description below, and I hope to see you all in the next video.